Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to my new YouTube channel, Read, Write, and Sip. I am a avid reader, huge reader, bookworm, bookaholic, call it whatever you will, as well as a writer of several decades. I have written in nonfiction and fiction, and I'm always reading something and always looking to share a book or pass a book along to someone, and I thought maybe this would be a place where I can share what I'm reading and you can share what you're reading with me. Besides book videos, I'll be posting a few videos on writing how-tos and recommending writing books as well. For those of you that might want to write a book, write an article, write an essay, I have experience in several genres, and I thought that might be something we could do. And the sips comes from my love of tea. I have dozens and dozens of teas. And what's better than reading and a hot cup of something to drink? My preference tea, maybe yours is coffee. And so each week I will also be featuring a tea of the week. Anyway, let's move along. The first book that I want to share is the book I just recently finished. I'm going to call it the Book of the Week. The only one left by New York Times bestselling author Riley Sager. This is my first Riley Sager book, and I have to say will not be my last. This is the story of two women, both tangled in horrible situations, both suspected or accused of killing their mothers. And in one case, in Lenora Hope's, she murdered her entire family. Lenora Hope's story takes place in 1929 at Hope's End, the estate that her father had built. And she is accused of killing her entire family and somehow ends up not in jail, but bedridden, mute, paralyzed, and in the family home, in her room for decades, never to go outside, leave the premises. And she is with Mrs. Baker, who has been her caretaker and governess since she was a teenager. Now we fast forward to 1983, and we have home health worker Kit McDear, who is dealing with the aftermath of her mother's death. Kit was her mother's home health aide, and she was caring for her mother at the time of her mother's death. One night when her mother is suffering, in particular, very horribly, she begs Kit to leave the medication out, promising that she will only take one. And Kit is tired and figures, yes, that's it. It's okay. It's against the home health aide rule, the code, but she leaves it out, believing her mother. And then the next morning, Kit finds her mother dead. And so her mother has died from a fatal overdose of pain meds, and the detective in town right away believed that Kit is responsible. She's treated like a murderer, and she's suspended from her home health agency for 6 months. So when she gets a call from her agency with an offer to become Lenora Hope's caregiver, it's mixed feelings. She's not interested, kind of creeped out, but in a very bad place. She needs money, and she wants to get out of her family home because her and her father are just locked. They're not at peace, they're not speaking, it's cold, and she is living with the fact that she feels her father blames her for her mother's death, despite the fact that her mother was terminally ill. So she moves into Hope's End and becomes a caregiver to Lenora Hope and has to do everything for her because Lenora has the use of only one hand and cannot speak. She taps 2 times for yes, once for no. But slowly, Kit becomes interested in having Lenora tell her life story. She wants to hear the story. And painstakingly, they tap it out word by word on this old typewriter. And just as she's beginning to figure things out, things take a little bit of a turn. There's a lot of twists, there's a lot of turns. The house itself could be considered a character because over the years, it's in disrepair, it's been neglected, and it's falling apart. The house is literally crumbling, and I don't want to give too much away, but they're finding bits and pieces, roof tiles, cement blocks, and the house is slowly shifting to the point where it's on a cliff, it's on the water, and everyone is aware that whether it's months, weeks, days, or hours, the house is going to eventually fall into the ocean. So you've got a lot of cliffhanging stuff going on here. You've got Lenora's story that Kit is getting deeper and deeper into. You've got a house that's dangling by a thread. And you've got Kit and her father, you know, a relationship that has is broken, it's disconnected, and it needs to be resolved. This was a page turner. It was just under 400 pages. I had a late dinner several nights, stayed up late several nights, and by the time I got to the last 2 chapters, I just said, I'm plowing through, and I just could not put it down. So I would give it 5 stars, and if you're looking for a good, suspenseful novel with a gothic vibe, this is definitely one you might want to pick up. Moving on, I mainly read cozy mysteries, and this book was supposed to be very scary and chilling, which I will say for me, and I am not the bravest, it really wasn't. It was very suspenseful, but not scary. So if you're worried about this isn't the scary book. However, for me, I decided to step out of my comfort zone, step out of my usual genres, and try reading some horror novels. It's October, it's spooky season, why not? I will show you the 5 books I picked up this week during my Barnes & Noble haul, which is a frequent event. The first one is Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Most people are familiar with Shirley Jackson's famous story, The Lottery. I had heard about this book quite a bit in some of my reading circles, but I had thought it might be, look at this cover. I thought it might be too scary for me. But now that I decided to push myself out, I thought maybe this is the book and the time. And so I picked up a copy, and I'm excited to dive in. And then classics, which I've read many, but it dawned on me I have never read Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I decided that this is Halloween, spooky season, vampires, witches. Read a lot of witch books, have not read any vampire stories. So it's quite long, little under 400, but I am really looking forward to this one. Bringing us back into present day and contemporary, I have The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This book is similar to the only one left because it covers 2 time periods. It's upstate New York, 1982. We have Viv Delaney, who really wants to move to New York City and can't afford it. So she takes a job as a night clerk at the Sundown Motel and soon finds out something scary is going on. And we flash forward to upstate New York in 2017, and Carly Kirk has never been able to let go about the story around Aunt Viv, who disappeared from the Sundown Motel. Dun, dun, dun. And so she decides to move to Fell, New York, and visit the motel, where she quickly learns that nothing's changed since 1982, and she gets quickly tangled up in the mysteries that claimed her aunt. I thought this sounded very twisty, creepy, and who doesn't love a good motel story? Think Psycho, right? Can't forget witch stories. I did have quite a stack planned, but this is the one that I'm doing. It's called The Witches of Bone Hill by Ava Morgan, and it is about Cordelia Bones, who had this beautiful, perfect life in the city, and suddenly it comes crashing down around her thanks to a cheating husband who has a lot of criminal debt. And she is somehow, the universe drops a little estate on her when her sister Eustace calls to tell her that a great aunt they have never met has left them an estate in a small town in Connecticut. And they have to travel to go see what it's about. And when they get there, they soon find out that the aunt's very aging and quirky attorney is going to make sure that they inhabit the house if they want it. On top of that, they're going to meet a cast of characters that have a lot of past stories. But this house comes to light with haunting family secrets, the truth of what happened to their mother, and actually, I would say, some kind of presence in the house that may not let them go. Very creepy, very supernatural. Cannot wait. And I've saved what I think might be the best for last. A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. And what caught my eye is, if you're familiar, this is the house from the show, The Haunting of Hill House, which is super spooky, super creepy. I started it and could not go all the way through the series. My daughter, however, just finished it and said she had a few nights where she could not sleep. What's really fascinating is that this book is the first novel authorized to return to the world of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. And it's supposed to be quite terrifying. In this story, Holly Sherwin, the main character, is a struggling playwright and receives a grant to develop her play, Witching Night, but needs a place to kind of focus, develop, rehearse, and put the play together. And she comes upon this house when she is on a weekend getaway and immediately is taken by the mansion, talks her friend into accompanying her, where they also bring in a troupe of actors, a lot of people with a lot of skeletons in their own closet. And before you know it, things start to shift. There are strange creatures stalking the grounds, disturbing sounds in the house, and the time itself seems to shift. And all too soon, they realize they're not just at odds with one another, this cast of characters, but at odds with the house. And it just feels like maybe this house has been waiting all these years for someone to come home. And I think this one sounds, out of all of my October reads, I think this one sounds the scariest. This will not be a nighttime read for sure. So, those are my October reads that I plan to read and hopefully complete by Halloween night. And I will list them below so that if any of the books I talked about interest you, you can pick up a copy and read along with me. If you are planning to read along with me, please let me know in the comments that you're joining in. I would love to have someone read along so that when I come back on in a few weeks, we can talk about what we read and you can let me know what you think. If there's something you're reading during this spooky season that you think I might like to read, horror even, mystery, let me know in the comments. So for now, until next week, thank you for joining me for my very first video, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.